What is going on, everybody? This is Shane Sams from flippedlifestyle.com and the Flipped Lifestyle Podcast. Great to be with you today. Got an awesome topic. Got another question from our Flip Your Life community members. Every single day, Jocelyn and I get into the forums inside of our Flip Your Life community, and we help people start, build, and grow their own online businesses. And we love to bring some of those questions here to YouTube so that we can answer them, not only to give a really detailed answer to our members, but to let everybody else listen in and maybe ask some follow-up questions. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is a question from Jen inside of the Flip Your Life community. And today's question is all about rich people habits. So Jen writes, I had a question about rich people's habits. Rich people seem to do things differently than other people do, and maybe that's why they get rich. Good common sense there. I've always wondered what a few things that rich people do that help them become wealthy. What habits have you guys learned that led to all of your online business success? So that's what we're going to talk about today, is those things that wealthy people, that rich people, that successful people seem to do differently than others. Those things that rich people do that maybe we weren't taught growing up in school, maybe where we weren't shown in the books and how to do those things when we were growing up, or that they maybe had an advantage and learned something from somebody else along the way. So, if you are here and you're watching this YouTube live, welcome. Go ahead and let me know who you are and where you're from in the chat. If you do have any follow-up questions as I go along, I usually don't look at the chat right when I'm speaking, but there is a delay, and I want to get to any follow-up questions that you might have. So make sure you leave those questions in the chat as we go. Okay. Got a bunch of people watching right now. I will get to your follow-up questions in just a few minutes. All right. So Jen asked, what are the rich people habits? What are they doing differently? When me and Jocelyn started our business back in 2012, we were not rich. We were not wealthy. We did not have a trust fund, backing us up to start our business and to become successful. And, we were hard workers. We were kind of, blue collarish kind of people, and just went to work every day, 9 to 5, got that paycheck every couple of weeks, and we just did our thing. And as we started looking at business, we had to figure out, what were these successful people doing? What were all these people who were making all this money online doing differently than we did growing up and in our jobs? Jocelyn and I come from normal middle-class families as we grew up, and we were taught amazing lessons about working hard and doing our best and things like that. But that isn't enough to become wealthy. That isn't enough to get quote unquote rich. So we had to figure out what these other people were doing to make so much more money than normal people were doing. $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, sometimes even $100,000 a month. We had to learn these habits of rich people, and the only way that we could do that was by watching them, by kind of watching the magician's hands. When I go to a magician show, I'm not looking always at the trick. I'm trying to figure out the trick. I'm trying to watch his hand and seeing where he slips the card behind his hand or puts it in his pocket and then goes behind the ear and the quarter appears. Like, that's what we really want to know. And, you can't really learn all of these habits from a book. You can't really learn how to, go from, middle-class paycheck to paycheck to wealthy by just picking up a book at the local bookstore or ordering it off Amazon. You've got to see and look and observe what people who have been there and done that and are being successful are doing. And that's what we started doing back in 2012, 2013. We started looking at successful people. We started figuring out what they were doing, and we started mimicking them and copying them and listening to them and doing what they were doing so that we could go out and make millions of dollars online too. All right, so I'm going to start off. I'm going to kind of count these in backwards order of what I think is the most important things we've learned in the last couple of years to make all of our money online. We do not hide the fact that Jocelyn and I have, a kind of a rags to riches story, and that we've become wealthy over the past few years. I'm never going to wish away God's blessings in my life, because, it's given us such an amazing platform to go out and help other people. And as we started talking about this question, Jocelyn and I usually go into the forums every day and look back and forth, and we say, oh, this would be a great question for a YouTube video. What do you think? What do I think? What have we learned? And, we started kind of identifying these, and we kind of ranked them in order, what we think was the difference maker in us making it where other people don't. Okay, so I got these kind of in backwards order here. from worst to first or least important to most important. They're all important, but number 5 is going to be the least important. I'm going to count down to kind of number 1. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we figured out, the number 5 rich people habit that we learned in the beginning was that rich people focus on making money. They don't focus on saving money. Saving money is important. It's a very good thing to do, especially if you're trying to get out of debt or do things like that. But when you want to talk about making more and making your income increase and getting to that status of wealth and riches in your income, you've got to focus on making money, not just saving money. There's only so much you can cut out of any budget, right? You can't save your way down to $1 million. You can save your way out of debt. I love Dave Ramsey. We used to do the Dave Ramsey plan, total money makeover, all of that stuff. It's a great plan when you're trying to get out of debt, when you're trying to live frugally, when you're trying to, learn how to spend less so that you can keep more of what you make. But one thing that even Dave says on his show all the time is the most powerful thing that you have to build wealth is your income. You've got to focus on making money and increasing how much money that you're bringing in. This was a dramatic shift in everything that Jocelyn and I were doing when we first started our online business. We had just come out of, we had gotten out of debt. We had learned to live frugally. We were on the Dave Ramsey plan, saving money, things like that. And we realized, hey, we can't cut anything else out of our budget. We're at the bottom level. So now how do we increase? How do we get to the point where we can pay off our car, pay off our house, start saving money for the kids' college and all that stuff, taking more vacations, doing all of these things and living life. And, we wanted to be able to do those things before we were 65 and retired. We didn't want to just sit around with our steady paycheck that increased 3.2% every year until we were retired at 65. And then maybe we got to go live somewhere warm. Like, that's not what we wanted. We wanted to go make more now. We wanted to increase now. And we realized the only way to do that was to increase our income. Most normal 9-to-5 jobs won't let you do that. That's one of the reasons we went online and we started looking for other ways to scale and reach more people so that we could make more money. So if you really want to be wealthy someday and you want to, move into that rich person column, you're going to have to change your mindset to one of, how do I make more money? Rich people don't say, I can't afford that. Rich people say, how can I afford that? And that's a conversation, that we had in the beginning. How can we afford to quit our job? How can we afford to pay off our house? How can we afford to take our kids to Jamaica for a week like we did 2 weeks ago? Like, you got to start saying, how can I afford it? How can I make more money? And then going out and seeking the answer to that question. If you just ask yourself, well, how do I make more money? I can't. Well, maybe in your current job, you can't. Maybe you can't get the raise. But maybe you can do something else. Maybe you can start a side hustle. Maybe you can do something on the side. Maybe you can replace this job with another job and you can keep raising it up so you're making more money. That's the only way you're ever really, truly going to become more wealthy. Okay. All right. The number 4 habit, counting backwards, is when we started looking at rich people and we started looking at wealthy people, we started looking at all these successful people in the magazines. We didn't look at the specific tool they were using. We didn't look at the specific way that they were making money, because everybody makes money in different ways. Okay. It doesn't really matter what you choose, that one thing you choose to increase your income. What mattered was how consistently they did it. We looked at all these wealthy people, all these rich people. We said, what do they do differently than everybody else? They're consistent at one thing. They find a nail and they hammer it. So we had to find our nail. We had to pick up our hammer and we had to hammer it just like they were doing. So many people, even now we see a lot of people come into our community. They try to start an online business. They go at it for a couple of weeks. They're not really into it. It's kind of hard. It doesn't really work out perfect. And they quit. Or they say, man, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do a YouTube channel. I'm going to do a Facebook Live. And they do it like once or twice. Nothing really huge happens. And they give it up. But the people who are consistent, who do the podcast every week, we've done a podcast every week for almost 4 years. Okay. That's consistency. We're doing YouTube videos pretty much every day in 2019. That's consistency. Okay. So the people who were consistent and stuck around the longest, we noticed those were the people who were making it. Those were the people who were stacking those successes over time until there was a tipping point and they became rich or wealthy or successful. It's like the iceberg. You see the success on the top, but underneath it is this huge, massive ice. Consistency over time, that ice building up, is what makes people rich. It's what makes people wealthy. That's what the rich people were doing that everybody else wasn't doing. They started a business and they kept running their business over time. We look back now, and half the people we met in 2013 have either given up or they're out of business, and they're wondering what happened. The other half kept going every single week, never gave up. They were consistent long enough to be successful. So maybe the reason you're not increasing your income or not becoming more wealthy or not getting to that point of success is because you're not being consistent. Maybe you have a podcast, but you miss one every once in a while. That's not being consistent. Maybe you promote your products to your clients once a month. That's not consistent enough. Do it once a week, right? Like maybe you haven't sent an email out to your list in 6 months. You're not being consistent. That's why you're not seeing results. And when we looked at all of these people that we were surrounded by, we said, hey, we've got to become consistent. It doesn't matter what we do, as long as we do it over and over and over again. Eventually, we're going to be successful. Okay. All right. Rich people habit number 3. They are not only consistent, but they are prolific over time. They increase their production. They increase their productivity until they're just doing more than everybody else. It's really easy in the beginning of your journey when you're trying to build wealth, you're trying to increase your income, you're trying to improve your family's future. It's really easy to get frustrated and say, well, that person just has something that I don't have. That person's just more talented. That person, they just, they've got the right stuff and maybe I don't have it. But really, they may just be outworking you. Now, I'm not talking 90-hour-a-week hustle and grind just for hustle and grind's sake. Just saying they're doing more stuff. Maybe it's like John Lee Dumas, who did a podcast every day. He didn't have a lot of advantages going in, but he was willing to be prolific and create 5 podcasts for everybody else's 1. Maybe it's like what we're doing here on YouTube. Jocelyn and I are trying to do a video every single day on YouTube answering a question from our Flip Your Life community membership. We're taking a question, putting it on YouTube. We want to answer it. That way, that person gets a really, really good answer, and everybody else can learn from it too. We're trying to be prolific in creation because not everybody else will sit down and do a YouTube video every day. They just won't. That is an unfair advantage that we will give ourselves that other people won't. And that's why we will give ourselves opportunities that other people will never get, because we're trying to be prolific. This is really what separates the successful people, those people who make money online, who get to quit their job and get that nice steady paycheck and that nice lifestyle of working at home, compared to the wealthy people, the rich people who see massive increase, who see massive opportunity in their life, and things start snowballing to a place where they never could have even imagined, where they start leaving an inheritance for their children's children, right? That's the difference between the successful people and the really, really, really super successful people, is they're not only consistent, but they're prolific. Okay. All right. So number 5, mindset shift. I've got to make more money, period. I'm not going to save my way into being rich. I've got to make more money. Number 4, consistency. You got to have consistency before you can be prolific. So consistency is your first focus when you start your own business, start making money online. You start going out and trying to increase that income. Number 3, they are prolific over time. They just get to a point where they're so consistent, they're already beating people, but now they're going to go one step further and they're going to be more prolific. Maybe it's going from 1 podcast a week to 2 podcasts a week. Maybe it's from going to 1 webinar a month to 2 webinars a month, but they become more prolific. And the longer they go, the more they're in it, the more they do, right? Because they have more resources to be prolific. All right, the number 5, 4, 3, number 2 thing is they own their own business, period. They are creators. They are entrepreneurs. They are founders. They are people who have seized control of their own destiny. We know a lot of people who have great jobs, have a great income, making a lot of money, got the nice house, got the nice car. That's fine. But a lot of those people are just kind of towing the line, staying steady. They're spending what they make, or maybe a little bit more than what they make. And even though they have really, really good income, it's only increasing a little bit. Yeah, it's one thing to make 200 grand, but then the next year, what if you make 205 grand, right? But what if you're spending the 200 grand on your car payment, your boat payment, your house payment, right? You're not really getting wealthy. You're just kind of still towing the line, barely increasing. We're looking for massive increase. Now, Jocelyn and I, Flipped Lifestyle, our business, has increased like 3 times in a year. Like, we're not looking for this steady, barely beating interest wealth. We want to increase. We want to double. We want to triple. And that's what you can do when you own your own business. If you're working for someone else, you're always restricted by what they want, by what their vision is. And if you don't have control of the reins, to where you can build it to a certain point where maybe you do, sell some equity, or you do sell your business, or you do whatever, you're not going to be able to increase and become as wealthy and as rich as you really want to. Okay. So almost every millionaire that we know, and we've met a lot of them over the last couple of years, almost every single millionaire we've met owns their own business, started their own business, founded their own business and sold it, or they control a majority of the equity in the business that they run. Okay. All right. And the number one thing, the number one habit that we've noticed that rich people do that other people don't, that successful people do that less successful people don't do, is they never worry about doing the right thing, not from a moral standpoint, but the correct thing in their business. They never worry about doing the correct thing. They always worry about if they're doing something. A lot of people, especially when they're first starting out and they're trying to change their financial situation, trying to change their family's future, trying to build some kind of inheritance and legacy that they can leave to their children and their children's children, they will go out and say, well, I got to pick the right thing. I got to hit the home run. I don't want to start because if I do, I may miss out and I may mess up. Right. And I've got to get this right. But that's not what it's all about. Successful people usually are the people who don't just worry about the right thing. They just do something and they learn if it's right or wrong. If it's wrong, they try something else. If it's right, they do it more. They hammer it more. They become more consistent. They become more prolific, and they get out there and they get it done. My favorite quote in the world is from Teddy Roosevelt. As many of you know, before we started our company, I was a history teacher, and my favorite historical figure is Teddy Roosevelt, mostly because the guy was crazy and he just had a lot of good quotes. But my favorite quote in the world is from Teddy Roosevelt. And a reporter asked him, like, how do you make decisions like this that affect the country, that can affect the world as the president of the United States? Like, how do you know you're doing the right thing? And Teddy Roosevelt basically looked at him and said, it's not about doing the right thing. You see, in any situation, the best thing you can do is the right thing. But the next best thing you can do is the wrong thing. And the absolute worst thing that you can do is nothing. And that's the problem. That's where most people mess up, is they don't do anything. They don't take any action. They sit and try to figure it out. And that's not what wealthy people do. That's not what rich people do. That's not what successful people do. Successful people do something. They do what they think is right, and then they learn if it was right or wrong. And then they pivot and do another thing to figure out. And if you keep doing things and you keep taking action long enough, you're going to succeed. You're going to be able to take the next step, and you're going to be able to go forward. You're going to be able to build the life, the business, the income, and everything else that you might want. So let's go over those again real quick. The 5 rich people habits that Jocelyn and I have learned and observed and identified over the past few years of owning our own business. Number 5, they focus on making money, not saving money. Got to be a shift. Got to be a transition there. You got to go, how do I make more money? Not just how can I cut expenses and save money. Number 4, they are consistent at one thing, and they do it really, really, really well. That for us, when we first started our education company, was to promote lesson plans to teachers. That was the one thing that we did really, really good, was we made lesson plans. We had lesson plans out there for history teachers, for elementary school librarians, and we were able to build that consistently into, we've got a lesson plan for you every day. We consistently created those lesson plans. Now it's consistently podcasting and consistently answering people's questions in our community. That's the big things that we want to be really consistent at. Number 3, they are prolific over time. They're not just doing a podcast a week. We're doing 2 podcasts a week now and a YouTube video every day. All right. So they're prolific. They go to the next level. They take the next step. Number 2, they own their own business. They're in control of their destiny. You're either building your dreams or you're building somebody else's dreams. When you own your own business, you build your dreams. When you work for somebody else, you build theirs. Okay. So you've got to own your own business. And finally, they don't worry about doing the right thing. They do something. They take action, and they take action every single day. It's not, I did that. It's, I do this. If you're going in to be wealthy, going in to be rich, if you're going in to make a living online, you've got to be all in and you've got to make it happen. And you can't be afraid of failure. You just learn from failure and you keep moving forward. Okay. All right, guys, that's all the time I got for the video today. See a bunch of people over in the chat room. See a bunch of people hanging out, watching the video today live. Thank you so much for tuning in. If we can help you find financial freedom and take your finances to the next step, we would love to do that. We help people every single day inside of our Flip Your Life community. You can learn more about that at fliplifestyle.com/free. We'll give you a 30-day free trial to come in, ask questions, hang out. It would be a great time to do that right now, guys, because in 10 minutes, I'm about to go live with dozens and dozens of Flip Your Life community member and answering questions at our Flip Your Life member call. We do 2 of those a month. Jocelyn and I jump on. She'll be in here answering questions. I'll be in there answering questions, and we'll get through a few dozen of those questions today to help our members make their dreams come true, to go out and seek that wealth, to go out and seek those opportunities, to build up those habits so that they can start, build, and grow a successful online business and change their family's future just like we did a few years ago. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. Check out that free trial. Hope to see you on our next member call. Hope to see you in the forums. I'd love to answer your question just like I did today for Jen. Talk to you soon.